Okay, wanted to say I will try to do this one in English because it's uh, it's about basically how we're managing the crisis. So it's and we see the same thing happening over the whole world. So it might be beneficial in English. Also, I wanted to introduce it that with the notion of bipolar management. Uh, um, Explaining bipolar man. This is just the first introduction to the hopefully some a series of this. But to understand bipolar management, this is applicable to your own life, but also for the crisis and globally. The problem with bipolar management is that it doesn't. It's trying to manage in a nutshell the outside, somewhat oblivious that uh, basically you should be managing. You have to realize that you have to see what you're seeing. You have to realize first that you have to manage yourself first, because you are like the hardware via which you are experiencing and interpreting what is out there. So if the hardware or the filtering via which we are managing something is not right, you will end up managing a product of a hardware that is itself wrong. We have discussed this in terms of lockdown. So bipolar management doesn't see that the hardware, meaning our own perception apparatus or the way we interpret things, which we would call the self, it doesn't realize that it itself is stuck in a black or white state, a thinking, a digital state where everything is sort of chopped up in zeros and ones, or good or bad, or positive and negative, and where these two sides in us are at war, which skews our perception of things. So we end up sort of managing the bipolar way in which we see reality. So to go beyond that, to go beyond the projections, if you wish, which is always going to happen in terms of black or white. Meaning, I will either make something too big, and then we lock everything down, and then we then make it too light, and then we in this case we open it all up without a plan or really having thought about the consequences. And we went into the lockdown also not really aware of the consequences, because once you lock everyone down and you give these extreme fines, and you create panic all over the place, also in the news. And once everybody is afraid, and then you from one second to the next want to open it all up and everything is okay, that is not a smooth transition. That is a sort of a jump, like a roller coaster, that will be devastating. But the bipolar management will not realize, that we created the panic, and now we want to do, we want to sort of bypass it as if there's nothing, as if we can go from one second to the next. The mind isn't able to take such leaps, such spiky leaps from all to nothing and nothing to all. It creates a sense of what we discussed, a sense of a bipolarity, or an upside down state. Um, this is just the first one, but it'll be a little bit all over the place to sketch the big picture. But it's important to record all of this, the point is that, so the quantum management would be where you realize that you're basically you're supposed to be managing yourself first. Actually, not even first. Once you really get the gist of this, you will realize that it's all about self-management. But in any case, the quantum or the deeper forms of management would say, you know what, I need to see myself in the picture. You know, I need to see how I am interacting and creating what is around me. How am I interpreting it? I need to see, for instance, am I too bipolar in the way I'm looking at the situation, and then I need to work on my inner agreement with myself. Only only when there is a lot of inner agreement within my own inner polarity can I sort of reach a center point where I don't too hugely misinterpret what is outside. If not, I will be either making everything, the end of the world, or the next minute it's fully rosy and beautiful. It's not possible that something could change, so quickly. And we all are bipolar to a certain degree. We all know what it is to be either ourselves or with someone who goes from all to nothing in seconds, like a race car, like a NASDAQ race car. It's like 1 second you're all happy and the next second you're all angry. And we all know what it is to be around this, but also what it is to be like that. But the only way to sort of go beyond the black and white checkered board or chessboard grid in your mind, and access a more even spread out between opposites, would be by looking at your own looking. And in order to be able to be aware of that, and then via the shadow work to reach a more centered core in yourself that is not so volatile or bipolar in the way it interprets or does things. So there is a spread. So psychologically you are seeing everything in black and white when you are in that bipolar state, really not doing justice to reality. But when you can go to the reflection mode, you are able to see or appreciate a whole spread, like a rainbow, between the yin and yang, or the opposites in ourselves, which is where the true opportunities lie, because it's between the extremes, that we find, if you wish, to profit the opportunity via smooth transitions between the poles. This is where we are stuck. Governments, organizations, and individuals are still stuck in bipolar management, meaning we think we are managing the outside, we think we're managing the crisis, but we're basically managing the way we are dealing with things. You see, if you see what I mean. You see, that's the step. That's the reflective step, where I'm aware of my own impact on the whole thing, and I'm able to manage that. Mostly we want to manage the outside, not realizing that we are basically, doing much more damage than whatever is out there. So to go into such a quick lockdown basically demolished, half of your economy, if not more. And as I posted a second ago, if we in a bipolar fashion open up the whole thing too quickly, you will get then that for instance, in the case of Aruba, the hotels have already association has already let be known that they cannot absorb another lockdown. They can't. The people would really in masses be sent home, be fired, be let go. Um, the point is, we're basically encountering the way we deal with things, the way we distort or disturb situations, not the situation. I've been teaching this I used to teach this at the university, where the teacher is basically getting in the classroom a result of the way they mismanage the classroom, of the way they are not able to bring out the best of the kids. But the grade goes for the kids. The grade goes for the kids. The grade doesn't go for the teacher. So in no area we are yet at the level of quantum management, because we are not aware sufficiently of the way we impact situations in a relationship. We want to manage the other person, want to change the other person, because they're this, that, or the other, and we're not seeing that the way the person is mostly a result of ourselves, who we are, how we deal with them. So that is the bipolar zone or magnetic zone, where we tend to push the other into the full opposite state that we are in, and then we fight that because it's so oppositional to us. But we're not able to see, that we are creating that state in the other, So we are like pushing each other into extremes. But within the bipolar zone, you will always gaslight the other, blame the other for, what we are creating. Like I said in the beginning, if we go too quickly to lockdown and curfew, you will get a lot of people that will rebel on that, and then you lock those, you find them, but you are creating that unconsciously, because it's too prohibitive and too quick. So we are basically we are basically in this stage. We are basically stuck in a bipolar state, and then managing things in a bipolar state, which is basically fighting the results of our own mismanagement in all areas. But to try to come to a close for today, once we do the true work on the shadow work, meaning we are able to reflect on how we are perceiving and interpreting things, and then we realize that we need to be managing that really first before we can manage anything else, because if not, we are the problem. We are the unconscious creators of the problems we are trying to solve. And then once we realize that, you will see management teams that are not only generating projects of how to fix outside, but the first order of business would be that the management team itself will have to do a lot of self-work on their own hardware in order to be able to not be stuck on the bipolar or checkerboard grid, but are able to move beyond that in the rainbow grid, or the color, where there is a spread between opposites, where there is a lot more opportunity, but also, and this is the twist, where we go deeper inward and where we are able to see that it's the very state we are in that is generating what is outside. See, that's the quantum core of true governance and self-sovereignty. We will be able to realize that if we are able to find that center, some would call it the golden mean, in ourselves, via working first on the self, first on the hardware, that we are able to attract a whole different stream of reality. because at the quantum core level, we are aware that the self is not separate from the surrounding and what is happening, but that the self is generating what is happening by virtue of the law of attraction. Once we graduate from the law of opposites, which is the bipolar level, so this is where we are stuck. The whole world reacted in a bipolar way to the virus, and then we're going from one extreme now to the other, which will again create all other sorts of problems, because we open up the border knowing that the hotbed is now Brazil and Latin America, and that the U.S. is still in a hotbed itself, an epicenter. What do? You import it back in, and you go again into lockdown. There is a middle. The point that I want to close with today is that there is a middle between these two extremes. There is a middle, but you can only find that golden middle out of the lockdown via self-work, via the true shadow work, which will sort of, get you off of the checkerboard grid, which always ends in checkmate, because you're a pawn on the checkered board. You don't have the ability to really use your choices and find, the right flow between the opposites. This is the next step for the crisis management. It's quantum, to try to get it off of the bipolar grid and get deeper into the self, where there is a much better level of agreement in between the poles, and out of that will come a form of management that is very smooth, and accessing creating the right stream to not generate a second wave, which will be, everyone says, much worse than the first. It's like the tail of the hurricane. Once you get sort of grazed by it the first time, then comes a second. The tail is what does the true damage. And, so we truly need the self-work to not keep being. It's like medicine, in order for the cure to not be worse than the disease, because that's where we are at in all of our systems. I will continue in another live with more of this. Thank you.